Right, thanks. Thanks everyone. Thanks, John, and delighted to be here. I'm Caroline Jessel. I chair the Kent Nature Partnership, and I'm one of the four co-chairs for the South East Nature Partnership, which in fact includes Kent, Surrey, Sussex, Hampshire, Isle of Wight, and Essex now as well. And Oxford will be joining us, I believe. So, what nature partnerships are a coalition of the willing who are standing up for nature. And we have a public, private, and voluntary sector membership and leaders in the field. What we're trying to do is coordinate our approach right across the South East to nature based solutions and the local nature recovery strategy. And as you all know, I'm sure on this conference, that the other side of the climate change challenge, the other side of the coin, is the nature emergency. We need to tackle that for its own sake, but also as part of our solutions to the climate crisis. And the nature partnerships are trying to coordinate themselves into a body that can support business and other stakeholders in taking forward the actions that we all know are so urgent and so important. We know worldwide that nature-based solutions or natural climate solutions can contribute up to 40% on different studies, depends what you believe, but somewhere around 35 to 40% of our response to climate change in terms of greenhouse gas reduction can be done through nature. And the question is for businesses, companies, anyone interested in the journey to net zero, which judging by the poll earlier is all of you nearly, you're keen to get involved. This is very much part of that journey. It's hand in hand. It's not an add-on. It's not an afterthought. And it's not there for greenwashing. It's an integral part of the way forward on addressing climate solutions. Fortunately, we have work, and I think you'll hear more about that, on nature-based solutions jointly with South East LEP, and that's all about carbon sequestration using the kind of model that has been developed by Kent Wildlife Trust in their Wilder Carbon Initiative, using that kind of thinking to measure carbon sequestration through natural climate solutions such as afforestation, creation of kelp, better kelp forests, which we've got a very good project around Sussex on, help the kelp, and that improves carbon, but it also mitigates and reduces the impact of climate change, as well as improving nature at the same time. So most of these solutions have multiple benefits, and that's what's really critical. Nature-based solutions improve biodiversity, but they also very often, or nearly always, improve the air quality, improve health, improve mental health, and increase climate adaptation as well. So we're very keen to promote this and make it easier for businesses to come and talk to us and find out solutions for your particular way of integrating. And we now have funding opportunities as well through issues like policies like biodiversity net gain, which is a planning opportunity for improving biodiversity in response to building houses and other infrastructure. On this, one of the questions I was asked in preparing for this was how would I vote for growth, or which is more important, growth or being clean, as it were, being green? And I would say we need to challenge the concept of growth and redefine what we mean by it. So clean growth is about improved prosperity. It's not the same necessarily as GDP growth. Improved health, improved well-being, having a viable future for our children and grandchildren. And if we grow in that direction, there's no conflict, but it might mean some reduction in some economic activities which are not contributing to a prosperous and viable future. So there is a conflict there, but it can be resolved if we redefine our goals for sustainable growth. And yep, I think I've covered everything, so I'm slightly ahead of time. Give you more time for somebody else.
Yeah, that's great. I'll hear from it's Frank there, please. Like to introduce yourself to the group.
Hi, good morning. Frank Gordon, Director of Policy at REA. REA is the Association for Renewable Energy and Clean Technology. We're a trade association representing around 550 members directly and around another 2,500 through our subsidiary organisations. We are a nationwide organisation, but we have lots of members in the South East area. Yeah, I would like to echo my thanks for the invitation to join today's meeting, and it's a really useful and interesting discussion, so thank you very much. From our side, we see renewables and clean technologies as fundamental to driving clean growth. Picking up on the previous point about the growth versus sustainability kind of argument, we would argue that you can have sustainable growth. The UK has been successful in the last 5 years of decoupling GDP growth from greenhouse gas emissions. And that is partly thanks to the adoption of renewable energies and clean technology more widely. We're now at around 42% of the UK's electricity supply is coming from renewables. And that's actually 95% in Scotland, which is where I'm speaking to you from today at the COP26 summit in Glasgow. So we've made some great progress, and we've seen how adopting the right technologies, the right solutions can lead to both economic growth, but also a reduction in emissions. And I think taking a place-based approach to sustainability and clean growth is really important. Having a no silver bullet approach whereby we don't just target one technology, one particular solution, but look at a range of different solutions. So when it comes to renewables, for example, we're talking about bioenergy, as well as wind and solar and those other more well-known technologies, perhaps. Really, there's a range of different options, a range of different opportunities for each region, each locality to benefit from these technologies and to grow in the right way. And just to put some further evidence on that, we've done a report this summer, which showed that the southeast region of the UK could benefit from an additional 25,000 jobs in renewables and clean technologies in the next decade with the right support and the right policies. So there's a big prize up for grabs. We just need the right supportive and regulatory environment. So thank you again, and I'll leave it there.
Great, thank you, Frank. And Andy, would you like to briefly introduce yourself as well? Do we have Andy with us? Ollie, if you would like to introduce yourself instead, please.
Sure. Well, hopefully Andy's hiding somewhere and it'll catch up in a moment. Hi, yeah, so I'm Ollie Pendred. I'm one of the founders of Riding Sunbeams, which is a very exciting project that actually started in the southeast of England, where and we're looking at connecting the world's first solar farm directly to the railways and power the railways, which is in Berwick in East Sussex. We'll be connecting to Network Rail's Salmerston substation. Now, that's a really exciting project, and we couldn't have got to where we've got today without the support of CELEP and East Sussex County Council and the county councils getting behind us and embedding our work in the Southeast, Greater Southeast Energy Strategy. And also why that's important is because we are supporting Network Rail to decarbonise. And they're the country's biggest energy user. And in doing that, inadvertently, we've aligned with their environmental strategy for Network Rail, because they need to green, and environmental policy for railways is very important. And actually, with solar farms, there's a real opportunity on low-grade land to take solar farms and improve the land quality over a 25-year period. And I've seen that on the solar farms, the community solar farms that we're working on, where we've enhanced the planting and the nature has been, we've been able to use the renewable project to generate renewable energy, low carbon energy, generally that offsets 4,000 homes on a 5 megawatt solar farm, but also to do this enhanced planting and nature conservation. And in the project that we're running with Riding Sunbeams in Berwick, a third of the site will be rewilded, and that's really exciting. So we involve the community in rewilding the site and planting up the site, and bringing bees in, and the farmer can bring in sheep to keep the grass down under the solar panels. So it really does enhance the site. And there's something in like that I would really like to showcase over the next 5 years. And also the benefit of that land over 25 years, how it, the biodiversity net gain. Just a little bit about Riding Sunbeams. We were set up by Community Energy South and climate change charity called Possible. And to basically, when we start delivering renewable energy to power the railways, that we do it alongside communities and commuters. So the vision is that, and the railway line that we're powering at Berwick will directly put renewable energy into the rail line between Eastbourne and Lewes. So then commuters can then, and communities can then invest in it, and we can develop a community dividend that can then be invested in local environmental and nature projects as well. And we want to scale that up across the Southeast with Network Rail. And so there's a real benefit of community renewables alongside nature conservation. And just to build on that, with Community Energy South, we have community energy groups, 42 community energy groups across the southeast of England, running renewable projects at the moment. And I know that they're aligned with nature conservation in their communities heavily. And in one particular project that we're looking at, which is a net zero village, where we're looking to take a village off oil onto renewables and to go to zero carbon for the village. There's been a natural partnership happened in that village with the environmental group that are looking at nature conservation, because they really marry with each other really well, renewables and nature conservation. So hopefully I can pick up more on that in the questions as we go on. But thank you, John.
Okay, thank you, Ollie. Yeah, it looks like Andy was with us earlier, but he's not on the call right now, so we'll proceed with the questions. So obviously focus today is the southeast of England, and I'd like to ask our panelists to comment, compared to other regions, what natural advantages does the southeast have to support net zero and clean economic growth? Which technologies and projects does it kind of give us a competitive advantage in? If someone would like to make a start.
Well, I could kick off if you like.
Sure.
So I mentioned the coastline and the kelp, but earlier on we were talking about tidal energy, and obviously that is a major potential in the southeast as well. So our coastline is extremely long and extremely varied in terms of biodiversity and geology. And I think that's a major natural capital asset in all sorts of ways, an opportunity that we don't necessarily value sufficiently or exploit enough. But we have got, the reintroduction of choughs coming and various things happening in the nature sphere, which also, of course, our coastline's very beautiful. So we have to think of it as an asset for tourism and for people who want to live and work in the southeast it's a major attraction. So, and our coastal path is another factor to bear in on that as well. The other thing I'd mention is soils, which are a huge carbon sequestration opportunity, and farmers in the southeast are increasingly realizing that we have very depleted, one of the most depleted soils in Europe, actually, in the southeast of the UK. And we can greatly enhance both their productivity, their nature, ability to support better natural environment, improve biodiversity, and at the same time sequester carbon. That also helps with flood resilience. So some of our opportunities are also our threats, because in the southeast we have major water issues, drought potentially, and floods potentially as well, both ends of the spectrum, and they're likely to get worse under all the scenarios predicted. So our attention to soil health is a great, will greatly improve the carbon cycle and the water cycle. So they're both, that's really opportunity there, massive opportunity for investment and carbon sequestration.
Okay, thank you. Ollie, have you got some thoughts?
Well, you know, first of all, the air quality, obviously, the irradiation in the south of England is really beneficial for renewable energy. And also, I just think, you know, I go to events across the country and I speak about community energy with communities. And I'm not going to say where, but I've been in some meetings across the country out of this region, and people there are quite behind, you know, in some ways in their thinking about renewables and nature. And I do think here, there's in the southeast, we are starting to get there to look at the benefits of renewable energy, you know, on roofs as well as in solar farms and the mix. So there is a whole educational piece to be done, but and just to encourage the two that go together, and I think that's a real benefit for the southeast. And you know, on this as well, I'm riding sunbeams. I was going to say another big part is about getting people to travel responsibly and to link up with our nature spaces, you know, with the Downs and the South Coast, so they don't feel that they can get in their car all the time to do every journey. You know, we need to make that change over the next decade up to 2030, where we have these amazing green spaces, there's amazing work to go and see, like in Rye Harbour with the butterflies and the nature reserves, and encourage people to travel responsibly to it and understand that that's a low carbon journey.
Great, thanks, Ollie. And Frank, your members in the southeast, what sort of trends do you see and opportunities for them?
Sure, thanks. Like I was saying earlier, it's a matter of there being more than one option. So people would actually be surprised perhaps at the number of options which are available to progress in every part of the country, including the southeast. So for example, onshore wind, maybe slightly more limited in the urban areas of the southeast, but there are still some possibilities. Solar farms have been mentioned, but also putting solar onto warehousing and office roofs. There's obviously hundreds of thousands of square kilometers of acres and hectares of warehouses, offices, etc., residential, which don't have solar PV on them. And if we could start to put PV on even a fraction of those, that would add up to a significant amount of generation. So even in kind of urbanized areas such as parts of the southeast, there's lots of opportunities. But also looking beyond that, there's still plenty of farmland. So bioenergy, biocrops could be opportunities there. And even technologies such as deep geothermal. Not everyone's aware, but Southampton, for example, has an extensive deep geothermal heat network. So there's a range of opportunities, more technologies than people imagine. Battery storage, for example, at small scales and larger containerized scales. Longer duration storage technologies such as and thermal storage technologies. There's lots of opportunities, lots of potential out there. We need to make sure we are exploiting all of them. And in terms of trends, yes, we've seen a lot of growth in solar, large-scale solar farms, for example. That will continue. It's about 5 gigawatts of pipeline projects of subsidy-free solar farms at a large scale, which is fantastic. They are increasingly being built alongside energy storage co-located at the same site. So that allows that site to better balance its supply onto the network, which adds benefits to the network and lowers the cost to us all from managing the energy system. That trend will definitely continue. So I see increasing distributed generation, increasing on-site energy storage technologies, and proliferation of a wider range of technologies as some of the main trends in the future.
Great, thank you very much. Yeah, we're seeing with the government's net zero strategy and renewable energy targets, they imply a lot of investment needed in our built environment and our landscapes to deliver those strategies. The sums of money involved exceed what perhaps the public sector can meet alone, so there's going to be a need for private investment. And what can the LEPs and partners in the room do to encourage these public and private partnerships to deliver? And pick on someone. Caroline, would you like to come in again?
Shall I go? Yeah, I think this is the way forward, definitely. And as I said earlier, nature partnerships are all about public and private partnerships and bringing the people together that need to be together, and the voluntary sector. So if you take the Wilder Carbon Initiative, which Kent Wildlife Trusts are doing, and it also is occurring around the country, there will be private investment for delivering carbon sequestration using a land-based approach, and that will then integrate with the Nature Recovery Network as well. So the government initiative, which is led by DEFRA on nature recovery networks, it can be linked to the public and private, the voluntary and private sector partnership. And that's already an existing mechanism, and there are several others that are up and running and working and evolving. And we're learning as we go, because the carbon accounting is something that is not yet fully developed for natural solutions. But a point I failed to make earlier that I just add in here is if you're looking at nature-based solutions, the ultimate aim, of course, is not to be net zero, is to be net negative, because we need to reverse the accumulation of emissions to date. It's not good enough just to turn off the tap. We've got to kind of empty the bath as well. And that's where nature-based solutions, particularly trees, for example, which have very long lifetimes, and while they're growing, they're consuming carbon. So in the journey to net negative, nature-based solutions are the way forward. I just wanted to add that.
Yeah. Thanks, that's a very interesting point beyond net zero. Ollie, how do you approach investment in your projects?
Yeah, it's a good, well, okay, thank you very much, John. So I think that for the community energy sector, they go to their communities for investment. So normally solar farms are built from sustainable funds, clean sustainable funds, and then refinanced by community finance. And I think there's some real learnings in that. Stranded assets, people from rural communities across the southeast have savings in bank accounts that are earning 0.5%, and they could be investing in renewable energy, but also nature projects as well. So there's a real opportunity to link those nature-based solutions with the public, private, but also community investment. And the community energy sector has demonstrated that as an opportunity. And I feel that with communities to get on board with nature-based programs as well, if you can get this carbon offset in some way developed, then there's a real opportunity to look at learnings from the community energy sector.
Great. And Frank, any thoughts on the investment question?
We've got a range of finance members in our group as well, and they are largely committed to investing in the sector, the growth of the sector, and helping reach their potential in the sector. So I think the LEPs, similar to a trade association, I guess, are all about promoting partnerships and working between public and private and third sector organisations, and there must be a huge role for the LEPs, definitely, not least for the LEP energy strategies, of course, but in lots of different ways. And I think we've heard of some good examples there already.
Great, thank you. Just mindful of the clock ticking down in the corner. Here in the southeast, yeah, there's a lot of pressure to still grow our communities, new house building. What do we do to kind of balance the kind of demands on natural aspects of the environment? Can garden settlements provide a way forward for striking the balance between new housing, energy demand, and natural capital? Give you a moment to gather your thoughts, Frank.
I could go on that if that's good. In a previous life, I was involved in the Eco Town project, which was a forerunner to the garden towns. So, well, so you can imagine my views on it. I think if we need to build, large amounts of new housing, it should be done in the right way, and plan from the outset to provide a really good quality of life and green space as much as possible, net zero on site target, and renewable energy generated on site. All those other benefits, great recycling facilities, EV charging, sustainable public transport uses, etc. Yeah, I think that we've got the Future Home Standard and the Future Building Standard being introduced in the next few years from central government, which will aim to address new builds, residential and non-residential standards to really raise them. And just in the last few weeks, we've seen a commitment to ending new gas boilers in new build properties, but also in existing properties, replacing their boiler by 2035. So there's been some progress on a kind of building by building basis. We need to expand that to settlements as a whole to really create those sustainable communities which are really livable and exemplify the sustainable ways of living and the sustainable development goals which we're all striving to deliver. And so I'd see that as a huge role for the LEP and the sustainability ambitions to support those type of communities and make sure that the development happens in the right way and as sustainable as possible.
Yes, given what I've said earlier about nature being able to contribute up to 40% of climate change mitigation, I think we shoot ourselves a little bit in the foot by covering over our green spaces with concrete, concrete being a very high emitter in its own way. So I would like to see a different housing strategy altogether that makes it much more use of existing buildings and office spaces and so on. I've seen very innovative ideas about building underground. I've seen innovative thinking about removing, low carbon building using trees, sequestering carbon, etc. for your building materials. And I don't really think the garden communities is the answer, because we do lose a lot of greenfield space, even if they're beautifully designed and lovely places to live and have space for nature and so on. Once it's concreted over, that land is lost forever. And can we, in the southeast, which is so busy and so built up, can we afford to go on doing it in this way? So I really challenge the overarching strategy that's build, build, build. I don't think it's the right way forward. Build differently and innovatively. And definitely people need places to live. I'm not against that at all, but there are other solutions.
And Ollie?
Yeah, so I'm going to, I might even ask a question back to Caroline, actually, but for me, I'm quite taken aback. I was at the Ashton Awards earlier on this week, a peak preview of the Ashton Awards, and someone said, "Oh, you're from Lewes. You've got this amazing. We had Colin Tingle and nature economics. And that's happening, but also with air quality and with pollution from cars, you know, especially in the center of towns, we need to see more urban green spaces, particularly around, you know, where there are a lot of vehicles, because air, you know, carbon monoxide from cars, it hits the kids, you know, it travels at their height, and it's a real issue. So we need to be greening our city centres, particularly where, you know, where with high combustion cars. And I would like to see projects like that really enhanced, particularly around, you know, travel hubs and stations and train stations and urban areas, you know, so we can see green walls in the middle of cities and, you know, down verges and things like that. The project, I've got a picture of Hampshire behind me. So I shouldn't have it really in this meeting, but anyway, but there what we're doing, we've done some QGISing for our community groups on verges. That parish councils and the community groups are starting to take on the verges rather than the county council, and enhance planting on verges, which is and cut them at the right time. So that's something that we're trying to encourage as well.
Okay, thanks. I'm not sure we've got much time for further discussion or questions. I know since the COVID pandemic and lockdown, it's enabled people to move out of cities back into rural areas and give people a whole new relationship to the natural world. So hopefully there are some behaviours that we've picked up to there that we can sustain us going forward in our journey towards net zero. I remember talking to a farmer once when he said he sees his whole farm now as a giant solar panel. It's just up to him to either convert that sunlight into food, into electricity, or increasingly now space for wildlife in our soils. So yeah, I'd just like to leave you with that thought. Thank you, everyone.
Okay, I hope we're all back and you can hear me. I just wanted to really thank you all for attending this event today. I'm sure you'll agree. I hope that this has been an insightful and educational.
Sorry, Chris, before we go into the end, we just wanted to run those polls again.
Okay.
That's right. Thank you. So apologies for that. Thank you everybody for a further really rich conversation. You know, the amount of stuff we're getting from this conversation is so passionate, it's so informative, and actually, you know, it's a real call to action, and for us it's something that we absolutely will take on board and move forward with. In the same way that we did a few minutes ago, it'd be really helpful if we could just run those polls again, well, fresh polls, but if you could sort of respond to the one that corresponds with the session that you were just in, that would be fantastic. So the first one we have is for those who attended the clean growth and placemaking session. Just popped up on the screen now. So if you could just review that and vote accordingly, that'd be fantastic. That's brilliant, thank you, and a clear message to us on that one, and one that fits quite neatly with quite a few of the conversations we've had already today. Thanks for that one. The second one, for the people who joined the Clean Growth Naturally session, that's just popped up on your screen. Thank you very much for that one as well, everybody. A good deal of optimism there, so long as it's associated with greater investment. So that's a clear message. Thank you very much indeed. Now, sorry, Chris, I'll hand back to you.
That's great. So I just wanted really just to thank our fantastic speakers and panel members who've been involved today. There were some really excellent contributions, and they're really, really thoughtful as to guidance for us as to how we go forward. I also wanted particularly to thank Zoe Gordon, Ellie Clow, and Amy Ferraro from the LEP team who have put this together. I think these conferences done through webinars are always tricky, and getting the technical aspects right, which I think by and large we did, was great. So thank you particularly to them. The next steps for our organisation are really important. We need to consider carefully the issues raised today, not just in our future activity, but through our working groups, our future investment decisions, and in the wider work we do to benefit communities across the South East. The South East LEP is well placed to help coordinate and bring people together on this. We have a unique role to play in convening partners and in championing clean growth and economic initiatives through our advocacy, and by engaging business and industry and in supporting specific projects. This event has provided an excellent forum for businesses and Southeast partner organisations to hear about all of these areas and how clean growth is being delivered in our region, as well as providing insight into what we can do collectively to fight climate change. This affects every aspect of our communities, our new housing developments, how we live and work, and what the public looks for from businesses as awareness grows and sustainable and clean living becomes the norm. The recording of this conference will be added to the CELOP website and shared. Thank you to everyone, and please do sign up to our newsletter, follow us on Twitter and LinkedIn, and keep up to date with the work of the partnership. Thanks a lot.